if your competition continues to learn and you don't, they're going to outperform you. They're going to have a better product or service, and they're going to learn better ways to reach their ideal and likely buyers.
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I want to be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today, as the Edmonton Business Coach, we're talking about how you shouldn't drop out when you're done school. So again, as the Edmonton Business Coach, we're saying don't drop out when you're done school. So the quote that we have here today is, from Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth, and he says, people who are exceptionally good in business aren't so because they know, but because of their insatiable need to know more. And the statistic that we have are 50% of all Canadian businesses go out of business in 5 years. And the story that we have are business owners who they graduate from university or a particular trade, and they think that the learning stops once they graduate. So Michael, what are the questions that these business owners should be asking?
When you are an employee, who is responsible for your training?
So when you're an employee, you're working for a company, you can pretty much just show up to the work site and the employer will generally look after it for you. They're going to hold staff meetings. They're going to, send you to off-site training. It's really guided for you. You're not really responsible to pick and choose. Someone is at the top is kind of, shooting that downwards, whether it's, training material that they give you, whether it's, in-house workshops, whether it's, training off-site at third-party providers, but generally the employer is guiding the training, not the employee.
Do continual education requirements focus on business or technical training?
I would say the vast majority of any continuing education requirements, so a lot of professional degrees or a lot of trades have a requirement to do a certain amount of continuing education, but the overwhelming majority of that continuing education is technical training. It's geared towards the technical work of that trade or that profession. It is generally not geared towards the business of that profession. And even sometimes when I have experienced some of that training where they do veer into the business of that profession, a lot of times the business is being taught from people who are good at the trade or that technical aspect, but they have no experience whatsoever of actually running a business in that area, or else generally a lot of times they wouldn't be teaching it if they had a good business because they wouldn't have the time to teach it. So you have to be careful that don't just think that your continuing education is going to give you the business training that you need. Likely it's just giving you the technical training that you need for your specific profession or trade.
What will happen if your competitors continue to learn and you don't?
So here's the thing: if you finished school, you dropped out of school when you were done, and your competitors don't drop out of school, they're gonna get better. They're gonna learn new tricks. You're not gonna learn those new tricks. They're gonna get faster because they're gonna get more efficient. They're gonna find better ways to approach their customers. They're gonna have ways to insert that wow moment with their customers. So if your competition continues to learn and you don't, they're going to outperform you. They're going to have a better product or service, and they're going to learn better ways to reach their ideal and likely buyers.
Do good employees tend to execute proven systems or change things on the fly?
Yeah, so good employees are generally the employees who can execute those proven systems. The owner, as the expert, comes up with a way to do the task at hand in a more efficient manner or a higher quality manner, and they pass that on to employees. And good employees tend to be able to execute that over and over and over again. They don't necessarily change things on the fly because a lot of times when they change things on the fly, they're not as experienced as the owner, so their output won't be that good. And even if they are, at the same quality as the owner, now you have one employee doing one thing and another employee doing the other thing, and the customer doesn't like that very much. So good employees tend to be the ones who can execute proven strategies over and over.
Is the owner then responsible for researching organizational improvements?
Yeah, so if you want to get better, you have to realize that you've tasked these employees with executing the same thing over and over and over to a high standard. But it's your job as the owner to improve those processes, to learn how to do them better, to always stay ahead of your competition. That's your job as the owner.
Should you view learning as an event or continuing spot on your calendar?
I think as a business owner, you should view learning as a continual spot on the calendar. If you're a business owner, you should have specific times in your day, in your weekly, repeatable calendar, monthly repeatable calendar, that specifically give you the freedom of that's when you're going to learn. Because if you don't do it and your competitor is learning these things, they're going to beat you to it, right? And you can't look at it as a one-time event. I can't just learn and graduate from school at this time, or 10 years in, attend this training session. There's a lot of stagnation that occurs between those periods. So you have to be continually improving. And in order to do that, you have to have specific times blocked out in your calendar, because if you don't do it, it's not going to filter down to your employees and they're not going to get better.
Do top-level CEOs tend to read more than the average person?
Yeah, when you listen to these guys and these really high-level CEOs, the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts of the world, they always talk about how much they read, and it's just book after book after book. And the stats are the average CEO reads far more than the average person. They're always learning because they've accepted that responsibility. That is their responsibility. Their employees are tasked with executing the systems over and over again to a high standard. That's why they bring them on. But then they have to accept the responsibility if they want to improve those systems that the employees are executing. They're the ones who have to drive the bus on that. And if they're not continually learning, if they don't have that time blocked out into their calendar, if they don't read more books, they're not going to be equipped to teach those people who are looking for them for leadership.
How does scheduling learning help you avoid shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, so learning is great, but it can also go the other way too. People can focus too much time on learning, so they're always adopting a new strategy. That rather than executing what they had planned to do, they're still learning to see if there's a better way. At some point, you have to stop learning and you just have to get down to work. You have to put pen to paper. You have to write the system of processes. You have to implement it with your team. You have to, just start doing. So by scheduling learning, that, hey, I can afford to learn at this time, but it's not coming at the detriment of the time required to actually execute any strategy. Because if all you ever do is look for a better strategy, you'll never actually complete the strategy. So at some point, you actually just need to start executing. And so if you have that time blocked off of when you're learning and when you're executing on a strategy, it'll avoid that shiny object syndrome where you're always just chasing a better way.
Why do you need to schedule time to pass this knowledge on to staff?
Yeah, so you can go one way and just adopt that shiny object syndrome. You're always looking for the better way. But then there's the other thing where you as a business owner, you can figure out that better way. It's a proven way. And now you actually need some time to pass it on to your staff. So, because if you just learn it, but you don't actually give that knowledge to your team, you get smarter, but you probably get frustrated because your employees haven't read what you read. They haven't consumed the material that you've consumed. So if you don't educate them and they're still executing it the old way, it's your fault, really. So it needs to be a scheduled time for the learning, a scheduled time to train the team on what your improvements are, and a scheduled time that you're actually executing. And it tends to be that scheduled time. I like to have that scheduled time first thing in the morning with the team. You get all the team together, you get that standing huddle first thing in the morning around with the team, start of a shift in any other business. And then once a week, I think once a week is the gold standard for if you can get the entire team together and go deeper onto a little more of an in-depth topic. That's going to work. And again, it's a scheduled time each week, because if you just try to get the team together kind of willy-nilly, they all have other stuff planned. They're meeting with customers over here, they have something planned with a supplier over there, and you can't get them together. So you have to actually set that time together when the team is going to meet and you're going to pass on the learning to the team.
Should you generally make radical changes or incremental changes?
The success that I've seen, and they really start to touch on it a lot in the book called Good to Great, is it tends to be that incremental changes over time win. So the people who radically change overnight, it's very difficult. The team is very difficult to implement, and it's very difficult to have effective systems in place if you can completely, blow up what you're doing and start going a different direction overnight. B, if you do, radically go a different direction overnight, a lot of times you have to change more than one variable, and when you change more than one variable, you're not sure which one worked and which one didn't. So I think it's that incremental change over time that's more manageable and easier to implement. And that goes along with the fact that you can only learn so much over time too. So if you only have so much time set aside for learning, it would be impossible to make, to radically change things overnight. But a lot of people underestimate how much they can change if they make incremental changes. If they make changes every week or even changes every month of their processes, they can move the business a very long ways. And they can do so in a controlled manner with a unified approach with systems and processes and teams trained to the new processes as well. So I would caution anybody thinking of making a radical change and think can we break this down into smaller increments, tends to be a better way. So I think that's what we have here today. Thanks so much for joining us again. As always, please hit the like and subscribe button so we continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. And please leave some comments below so we can respond back and use your input for future videos. Thanks very much.